I thank God for yet another opportunity to come to you with this study series on the role of women. This is the ninth session in the study series. In the previous few sessions, we looked at the role of a woman as a wife in the family. Now we move on to consider the role of a woman as a mother. This role is very significant as it impacts not only this generation but also the future generations. How you handle this role is vital in the plan of God and its fulfillment for your children. If you are a mother and if you instill the fear of God in the heart of your child, God can accomplish His purpose in your child's life as he or she becomes an adult. When you are blessed with a child, it also comes with a great responsibility to raise that child in the ways of God, and it is in your home that you prepare the child to fulfill God's purpose in their life. In Titus chapter 2 and verse 4, concerning young women who are mothers, it tells that to love their children. We know that loving a child comes as natural to a mother, so why it is being emphasized here? I think the answer is given in the following verse where it says that the word of God may not be blasphemed. It is to uphold the sound doctrine by practically manifesting it in our life. It is to love our children unconditionally, no matter what the circumstance is in our life. To love them is to care for them and to prepare them to face the challenges of the world. It is to build their spiritual character and equip them to face the uncertain days of the future. I want to illustrate this by taking three women from the Old Testament that are familiar to us and show how they loved their children and equipped them for their future. I want to look at first Jochebed, second Hannah, and finally the Shunammite woman. When we think of Jochebed as a mother, we can learn some aspects of motherhood from her short period of time she had with Moses. The passage that we are looking at is from Exodus chapter 2. As soon as the baby was born, she knew that it was a goodly child. It is important to notice the word goodly. The meaning of the word goodly child is that the child is pleasant, agreeable, or good. It is the same word that is used in relation to God's creation. When God saw the light that He created, He said that it was good. After separating the waters from the dry land and the seas, God said it was good. So when Moses was born, Jochebed was appreciative of the blessing of God. Just like God saw that His creation was good, when Moses was born, she was looking at God's perfect creation. They wanted to preserve God's good gift from the hands of the destroyer. In Acts chapter 7, it says that he was exceeding fair, meaning fair to God or beautiful to God. I believe that every mother, after giving birth to a baby, could look at that baby and appreciate the perfect creation of God. Jochebed wanted to save that child even if it would risk her own life. That is the kind of love a mother has for her child. That love is manifested through her actions. When she could no longer hide her son in their house, she wanted to build an ark of bulrushes to put him in the water to preserve him. I think we have a spiritual lesson for mothers through her actions. The river is a picture of this world. What the world wants to do to your children is to restrict their growth. This is very much evident as we read in Exodus chapter 1 and verse 22. There it says, and Pharaoh charged all his people, saying, every son that is born ye shall cast into the river, and every daughter ye shall save alive. Just like Moses could not be hidden in his house forever, but has to face the world, every child has to leave their Christian homes and face the challenges of this world. If every mother would take the spiritual meaning of what Jochebed did, you can be assured that when it is time for your child to go into the world, he or she would be protected. Your responsibility is to develop your child's affinity with the Word of God, which will serve as the wall of protection against the incursion of the world into your child as he or she goes into the world as an adult. Before the child enters a chaotic world, they have to be taught and trained from the Word of God that they may have a strong foundation and not flow according to the course of this world. The purpose of the ark was to protect and preserve the life of Moses from the water that he was in. His mother did everything very carefully to prevent the water from entering into the ark. That should be the motive of every God-fearing mother as she prepares to send her child into the world. The world should not enter into the child's life and restrict the spiritual growth. If your young adult does not have that layer of protection that is based on the Christian principles, it becomes difficult to prevent the world from slowly creeping into their life and eventually will endanger their spiritual life. I hope I have made it clear the consequence of not properly training your child and preparing them as they go into the world. Mothers have a great role to play here, and the responsibility is truly significant. I also want to add that this is not exclusively to mothers alone, but as parents, both the father and mother are responsible. In Exodus chapter 2 and verse 2, it says, she hid him 3 months. Here the credit goes to the mother when she saw that the child was goodly. She wanted to protect the child. We see her faith in action. When she knew that the hand of God was upon her child in creation, she knew that God had a purpose for him. In Acts chapter 7 and verse 20, it says, and nourished up in his father's house for 3 months. Here the father is mentioned. They really took care of the child. He was well fed so that he could grow. They were concerned for his growth. So here the credit goes to the father. And if you turn to Hebrews chapter 11 verse 23, it says by faith, and continues to say was hid 3 months of his parents. Here both the father and mother are included. Both of them were essential for child's safety and nourishment. They did it by their faith in their God. After Pharaoh's daughter took Moses from the river, he was given to his own mother for nourishing. In Exodus chapter 2, verses 9 to 10, it says, and Pharaoh's daughter said to her, take this child away and nurse it for me, and I'll give thee thy wages. And the woman took the child and nursed it. And the child grew, and she brought him unto Pharaoh's daughter, and he became her son. And she called his name Moses, and she said, because I drew him out of the water. Now, we don't know how long Jochebed took care of her son, and I assume it would be definitely a few years until he is weaned. I think Jochebed really used this time to teach about the God of the Hebrews, and that he had a great purpose in saving his people. She taught about God's purpose with Abraham and his promise with him and his descendants, and that God will one day deliver them from Egypt. I strongly believe it because after 40 years in the palace and taught in terms of advanced Egyptian wisdom and learning, when he came out to visit his brethren, he was moved with compassion when he saw his brethren were treated unfairly under Egyptian bondage. He must have moved by the stories that he heard from his mother while he was being nursed, and that had a profound impact upon him as he came out to visit his brethren. I believe his mother played an important role in his choice of suffering affliction with the people of God than to enjoy the pleasures of sin for a season, as we read in Hebrews. It made him to forsake the treasures of Egypt and to esteem the reproach of Christ. Dear mothers, what do you teach your children? Do you teach them the principles from the Word of God that they can apply it in their life when it comes to their choices? Do you think that when they come to that stage, when they are about to make their own choices, that they will forsake the treasures of Egypt and esteem the reproach of Christ? Now, when they are young and they are with you, you can develop their spiritual character so that they will not lose their heavenly reward because of their love for the treasures of this world that are temporal in nature. So may we look at the life of Jochebed and what she did for Moses and how it has greatly impacted his life, and may it be a great example for dear sisters who are mothers to follow. Next, I want to consider the motherhood of Hannah. I know that the account of Hannah is very familiar to all of us. I would like to touch upon few important aspects from her life as a mother. Hannah, before becoming a mother, had some bitter experiences, but she desired to have a son, and she prayed to God in anguish and with tears. We read of her prayer in 1 Samuel chapter 1 and verse 11. And she vowed a vow and said, Lord of hosts, if you will indeed look on the affliction of your servant and remember me, and not forget your servant, but will give your servant a son, then I will give him to the Lord all the days of his life, and no razor shall touch his head. Even in her prayer to God for a son, she already has made up her mind about what she will do if God gives her a son. She says, I will give him to the Lord all the days of his life. She wanted to give the son back to God for his service. To have a child would definitely satisfy her desire to be a mother, but I see something more than that in her prayer. Her desire was to satisfy the heart of God by raising up a Nazarite man who would bring a change to the nation of Israel. It was a time that was characterized by the sin of Eli's sons. The nation needed a leader who would direct them back to the ways of God. Hannah knew that God could use a man to bring the nation back to God. Her desire was to honor God if God blessed her with a son. Dear mothers, when God blessed you with a child, your desire should be to honor God through his or her life by preparing that child to fulfill his purpose. You raise that child with a desire to satisfy the heart of God by using your role as a mother to prepare him or her for the master's use. When God answered her prayer, she kept her vow. After Samuel was weaned, she took Samuel to the house of God to minister before the Lord. In 1 Samuel chapter 2, we read of her devotion to God for answering her prayer. She had a thankful heart and she rejoiced in the presence of God and prayed, and the prayer tells us that her deep personal knowledge and appreciation of God for her. Now let us move to understand her diligence. We read in 1 Samuel chapter 2 verse 19, "Moreover, his mother used to make him a little robe and bring it to him year by year when she came up with her husband to offer the yearly sacrifice." Notice that she brought a robe or a coat when she came to visit Samuel. She knit together a perfect coat every year and brought it to Samuel. What I notice here is that she exactly had an idea how much she grew in a year. She is expecting a certain level of increase in his growth every year. She is knitting together a beautiful coat that he is going to wear in public. Dear mothers, are you in secret knitting a beautiful coat of fine character that your child is going to wear as he or she goes into the world? Are you anticipating a certain level of spiritual growth in your child as the years go by? The child Samuel grew in favor both with God and with man. I'm sure that every parent wants their child to have the same testimony as that of Samuel. Jochebed prepared an ark to protect Moses from the water. Hannah prepared a coat every year for Samuel to wear in public. Both of them had only a few years of their life with their child, but left a great impact upon their life for the rest of their lives. If we want to protect our children from the influence of the world, we need to enfold them by spiritual truths from the Word of God, as it is indicated by the ark that was prepared for Moses. If we want our child to manifest Christian values as they go into the world, we need to knit a coat of Christian virtues and put them on in their early stages of development, as indicated by Hannah bringing that coat to Samuel every year. We will continue in the next session by considering the Shunammite woman. May God continue to bless us.